Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Consumer Behavior Shifts, What's Next for Snack Manufacturers. I'm Ujaswini Parashar, the Associate Editor of Food in Canada. We are part of Annex Business Media, which publishes more than 60 leading B2B brands across Canada. Before we jump in, just a quick couple of housekeeping notes to help everything run smoothly. You're all in listen only mode, so we won't hear you. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will save time at the end to go through as many as we can. Also, we are recording today's session, so if you miss anything, no worries. A link to the recording will be sent to all registered participants in the next few days. All right, then, let's get started by welcoming our panel of experts. Kirk Homnick is the driving force behind the success of naturally homegrown foods and the well loved hard bite chips. Since taking the reins in 2011, Kirk has grown the team, ramped up production, and taken hard bite to shelves around the world. Before hard bite, he built his career at Howlings, Forbes Meditech, and BC Hot House. A fun fact about Kirk is that he stands at 7 feet tall, making him the tallest person in the snack manufacturing industry. Moving on to Andreas Thiers, he is one of the top minds when it comes to AI, data, and consumer packaged goods. As the co founder of Six Seeds, he helps CPG brands fast track their product development with the power of AI. With over 2 decades of experience and a knack for captivating audiences, Andreas is a frequent keynote speaker at food industry events across the globe. Well, that's something you might have already known, but here's something you might not expect. He used to be a Navy cadet. Turns out he's not a fan of following orders, which is probably why he's so great at carving his own path. These days, he channels that energy into sailing and even races on Lake Ontario in the summer. Jane Dummer is a registered dietitian and food industry consultant who has worked on more than 60 successful projects across North America. Her focus? Helping F&B companies in agriculture, nutrition and health come up with smart, creative strategies that work. Jane is also a published author, writer, and sought after industry voice, regularly speaking and contributing to conversations shaping the future of food. Here's something you might not know though. Jane earned her private pilot license in 2001 and was active in the skies until 2020. So, yes, she knows how to navigate both flight paths and food trends. Thank you so much, Kirk, Andreas, and Jane, for joining us today. Before we jump into the conversation, let's set the stage a bit. It's no secret that consumer habits are evolving and snack manufacturers are feeling that shift more than most. Just take a look at some recent headlines. Hershey acquired an organic snacks maker, Lesserville. Ferrero bought Power Crunch, and Nestle partnered with startups focused on plant-based and nutritious snacks. Even Gerber has launched a snack line featuring ingredients like quinoa, carrots, and kale. These are some big brands making bold moves to meet a growing demand for health forward options. On the retail front, chains like Aldi are expanding their healthy snack offerings while brands like Nature Valley are releasing snack-sized versions of their popular granola bars, catering to consumers who want convenience and better nutrition. Innova's 360 research shows that there is a global rise, especially in segments that emphasize natural ingredients, low light options, and positive nutrition claims. Cereal energy bars currently lead with the highest penetration of health claims at 81%. The message is very clear. People still want to indulge, but they want to do it mindfully. They are reading labels, seeking out natural ingredients, and looking for snacks that offer not just taste, but benefits too. We are also watching trends like the rise of GLP-1 medications, which are impacting how much and what people eat, particularly in the snacking and dessert categories. At the same time, the industry is contending with bigger challenges like inflation, tariffs, and increased competition. Major brands such as PepsiCo and Campbell reported lower snack sales, which affected their overall profits. So, the question we are here to explore today is what's next? How can snack manufacturers stay ahead of these changes, create products that resonate, and uncover new opportunities, both at home and in international markets? Luckily, our panel is full of insights. So, without further delay, let's start the discussion. So, Kirk, let's start from you. What are the most significant consumer behavior shifts that you have observed in the snack category over the last year?
Well, I think if we take it back a couple of years coming out of COVID, we had all of the inflationary pressure with ingredient and input costs that really drove price up that didn't necessarily find its way to the consumer until last year. And so by the point we got to last year, what we saw was a shrinking of consumer spending in the grocery store and more discretion. We saw an increase in salty snack sales, but that was based purely on price. This past 12 months, we've started to see units rebound and seeing an increase in dollar sales in the category as well as unit sales, but it's been slow and sluggish. And it kind of flies in the face of some terminology that we love in the snack space that says, in good times people eat chips, and in bad times people eat a lot of chips. And that was true until we hit the price elasticity point, and that kind of slowed things down. So what we're seeing now is the categories being driven by ultra premium products. And as well as private label, and then certain other things such as multi-packs are driving within the salty snack space. Um, and so if you're in the middle, you're kind of really fighting for market share. But if you're in those other segments where you can differentiate, there's great opportunity.
Well, that's insightful. Thank you so much, Kirk. What are your thoughts on this, Andreas?
So building on what Kirk just said, I think we're seeing very similar things, and what we're seeing is a reframing of what better for you actually means. So it's no longer just about calories, it's about functionality, it's about portion control. And I think one of the really important things, if you're in snack manufacturing, if you're in snack sales, you need to keep an eye on the emotional payoff. Um, as Kirk was saying, traditional snack sales are plateauing, but where we also see the growth, and again, this works with the ultra premium that was just mentioned, is that better for you snacks are where the interest is. So the consumer interest is very targeted. So what we are seeing in our data is that people are actively reducing impulse purchases, and they're seeking more, I'm going to call it more intentional snacking moments. So there is this thing in planned indulgence where consumers are asking themselves, is this worth it? Not just from a financial perspective, but also from a perspective of what am I putting into my body? What kind of experience am I creating for myself? And what's the outcome?
Thanks for sharing that perspective, Andreas. Coming to Jane, what specific health and wellness concerns are driving these changes and influencing product development?
Yeah, so basically building upon Kirk's talking about the lockdown, everybody at that point was an immunologist. People were really concerned about immune health. So immune health continues to be top. Gut health, so the microbiome base. And so we've just seen Coca-Cola buy up, or no, Pepsi, oops, that was a mistake. Pepsi buy up Poppy, the quote unquote gut healthy soda. So the gut space is huge, the immune health space is huge, energy is big, stress, energy, cognitive and brain health. And something kind of newer on the scene is beauty from within. I wrote an article for Food in Canada, I think about a year and a half ago, about ingredients in the food ingredients in the beauty from within. So that's an interesting space because it's ingestible but also topical. It's like and that's not snacking, but the snack size ingestibles for beauty from within is an area that I'm seeing growth in. The other thing that I want to bring up is precision wellness. Andreas is the AI expert, and so people are relying on, well, of this panel at least, Andreas. So people are relying on genetic testing, AI, wearables, and how they can personalize their lifestyle, and that includes foods and snacks. So those are really my top. And just checking my notes to see if I've missed anything. Positive nutrition and preventative care we've already talked about. So positive nutrition is adding healthy ingredients instead of like reducing sugars, fats, and salts.
Those are some great points. Thanks, Shane. Moving on to the next question. How are snack brands responding to the growing popularity of GLP-1 drugs and their potential impact on appetite and food intake? Andreas, you go first on this.
Sure. GLP-1 in Canada more than in the US is, I think, underestimated the effect of GLP-1 on consumption and on calories. You know, if you think about that, a typical GLP-1 patient will consume 30% fewer calories than somebody who's not on GLP-1. That's a massive impact on the basket at retail. So what's happening with GLP-1, we call it a compressed consumption window. People are eating less frequently. And when you eat less frequently, and if you eat less, what this means is that each eating moment that exists becomes more important, carries more weight. Nutritionally, and I'm going to come back to emotions, but nutritionally, but also emotionally. So we are advising our clients to rethink SKUs for this emerging market, smaller portions, high satiety, high nutrient content, and bold flavor. And the idea really is to make every single bite count. And talking about Jane, you talked about AI. We're using a lot of AI to explore flavor combinations, to explore consumer responses, and to optimize ingredient profiles to create those special moments where every single bite does create both a nutritional and an emotional payoff for the consumer.
Thank you for answering, Andreas. Kirk, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting one because we're obviously an indulgent snack maker. You know, we're not necessarily a tailor-made food to complement a GLP-1 diet. But I think what trends that we're seeing right at the forefront today in the marketplace are things such as patients or people who may be candidates for GLP-1s who are also exploring anti-inflammatory diets and looking at better for you or non-seed oil alternatives with, say, the cooking oil that we might use in a product. But Andreas hit the nail on the head, and I mentioned it earlier too, portion control. I think that's something that's incredibly important and not slowing down. And if we kind of, you know, start at, say, a GLP-1 consumer and expand beyond that, you know, there's the data is according to Circana in a presentation I was at recently, it states that 48% of the US population at least snacks over 3 times a day still. And so what does that mean when we talk about portion control? Within the snack space, that really goes from maybe not necessarily the product, but the package. And so looking at things like within popcorn, 100-calorie packs, or just the overall growth of multi-packs is huge. Hershey says it's a $20 billion market overall. And within the salty snack space, it's about 16% of the overall sales of the category and grew by 10%. So it's actually one of those ultra premium items and SKUs within the snack space that's really driving category growth right now. You know, it's more work, but what we love about it is creating more snack occasion and getting exposure to consumers in different points in time. You know, beyond that, with the increased snacking, you know, the term on portion control is dashboard dining. You know, so it's away from home consumption and things like that. So. I guess that would be my comment on that, veering off a little bit, but hopefully kind of building on what Andrea said.
Thank you, Cook. I guess this is something that we all can explore a bit more on. So, coming to Jane, what nutritional and portion control innovations are gaining traction in this particular context?
Yeah, just to build on the portion control of the 100-calorie snack. So Kind has come out with mini bars at 100 calories, and Kind has always been, very few ingredients, indulgent pieces like salt and dark chocolate, but on nuts and seeds. So I give that example. But looking at the nutrients of protein, fiber, and then essential vitamins and minerals. So as Andrea said, like the snacking occasion is very purposeful. It's very nutrient dense. It's planned. So making sure that you've got those macro and micronutrients. And Nestle's, I mean, they came out with a food line called Vital Pursuit. And so it's more food, but maybe you could use part of it as a snacking. So that's another example of companies. And there are other smaller companies that are tailoring foods for this specific use.
Thank you for the amazing response, Jane. Let's keep going. So, what strategies can help manufacturers balance indulgence with health in today's snacking landscape? Why don't you go, Jane, this time?
Yeah, so I like the wholesome enjoyment with potential nutrition or positive nutrition. So, years ago growing up, it was a treat. Snacking really wasn't part of the day. And now snacking, as we're here talking about it, is an intentional piece of the day. So, I like the idea of the enjoyment with positive nutrition. I like the idea of nostalgia, so bringing back memories, so that level of indulgent, but also offering a health benefit to that nostalgia. So those are the two or three things that I'm thinking of. Also, too, you want to satisfy hunger and you want to be satiated. And so if you've got a better for you product with no indulgent piece to it, so the taste is not great, the texture is objectionable, it's not going to be a repeat purchase, and it's not going to be an enjoyable occasion.
Yep. Thank you, Jane. Those were some great examples here. Andreas, what are you seeing from your end here?
Very, very similar things to Jane. What so from our own practice, we help the client work on exactly this. And so when we started working on this, nostalgia was massive. Nostalgia is currently one of the leading consumer emotions out there. The reason behind this is that the world in many ways is perceived to be a dangerous and unsafe place by many people. You have global warming, you have political strife, you have war all over the globe. And so going back to these childhood memories, going back to a place of safety, hopefully for most people, and then have flavor experiences that play in that particular area, that's a very, very powerful thing. We worked with the Peanut Council recently, and the nostalgia of peanuts was a major consumption driver for peanut-based snacks, where people, they think about ball games, they think about road trips, they think about eating peanuts, watching TV together with the family. So everything that Jane said is something that we see as well.
Thank you for that, Andreas. That is super helpful. So, Kirk, let's hear it from you now.
Yeah, I'll give you guys and I'm probably gonna, condition on maybe not really balancing health quite as much on this, but building on the nostalgia piece, example of one that really reinforces what the panel's mentioned thus far. We all remember those nostalgic potato sticks. The old nostalgic brand used to be Hickory, Hostess Hickory. I'll leave it at that. I won't go any deeper into who the manufacturer was. We actually launched a seasonal potato stick this year with a salted smoke flavor to it. Complete nostalgia item, oversold it, and it's a great thing when your sales team's kind of knocking on your door saying, can we expand our packaging? Can we rush in some more packaging because this stuff is flying off the shelves and people are loving it. So I think that's a great example of nostalgia. I think the other things that maybe just to build on this a little bit is indulgence in health, transparency in label. Certainly we balance with clean ingredients, non-GMO, project verified, and where you can source within, especially our borders, big over the last 6 months has been something that we've seen some growth in. So what is Canadian and what is made in Canada is being defined a bit more, and certainly there's a consumer sentiment in supporting brands that are supporting Canadian industry and agri-food industry as well too.
I love the insight.
Those hickory sticks, Kirk, used to be kryptonite for 10-year-old me. 100.
That's amazing. And just a quick note for our viewers, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it out. Now, moving on to the next one. How are inflation and tighter consumer budgets affecting product development, pricing, and distribution strategies? Andreas, let's start with you.
Sure. I think inflation has made two things essential: focus and flexibility. And what we've seen is snack makers cutting back on new, more experimental launches, but then also doubling down on right fit innovation. And what I mean by this is some of the things that both Kirk and Jane said. De-risk product development by predicting success based on real observed consumption patterns that we talked about so far. It means identifying which claims, which product size, which channels are actually worth investing in, because every dollar has to work harder, and then double down on the things that will work and perhaps not explore the options that are perhaps that are riskier. And one of the things, again, I don't mean to harp on about this, but AI is an incredible, useful tool to make data useful that in the past was difficult to understand and difficult to work with. So right fit innovation is the biggest differentiator that we're seeing.
Thanks, Andreas. Those were some great points. So, Jane, what is your perspective on this?
Well, following up with Andreas about the right fit, I'm actually experiencing some companies just putting product development on hold right now, which is unfortunate, but that's a reality of what's happening. And then looking at what Kirk said about Canadian ingredients. So we've had over the past, I would say, six months, definitely wanting to source more Canadian. And we know as agriculture, it's, not just going to the shelf and getting it, because the cycle to go to seed to ingredient is a long cycle. So those are building upon what Andreas already said, and also being competitive price wise. So I think it was Kurt said at the beginning about the chip analogy. And so how much discretionary spending does your target market have, and what are they willing to pay? So that is changing as Andreas said, the world is unpredictable. So
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's particularly true when thinking from the manufacturer's perspective, especially considering that there is so much, less stability in the market right now. People can't really plan ahead. So hoping to like everything's, stabilizes soon. So Kirk, how has your pricing strategy and product portfolio changed in response to inflation or supply chain issues or the affordability crisis in Canada?
Yeah, let me steer it back first off to Jane's comment about some clients kind of backing off on innovation, and I think that's consistent to the market. I'm certainly not challenging it, but I think we've challenged that mindset ourselves as a company because our business has really, become what it is because of innovation. So we didn't really slow innovation through that window of time, even in spite of the fact that it was difficult to get product to market because retailers weren't necessarily taking meetings and just wanted to stay simple with supply chain. But we really work off of the principle of innovate or die. And especially in salty snack, if you're not innovating, you're inevitably going to have one of your lower performing SKUs knocked off, in spite of the fact of it might not be that low performing compared to others within the category. So that's a passion of ours as a company, and so we'll roll out up to 8 different innovative new seasonal things per year, plus about 4 everyday items. We innovate a lot. And of course, that is, with ingredient and flavor profile, and it's not necessarily, rocket science of brand new formulation itself. But I think that's really important. And kind of steering away from that to your question as well, OJ, is a pricing, over this window of time with instability within supply chain. It really was a matter. We said internally, let's make sure we're controlling our controllables. Let's manage what we can on our cost, and get better, so that we remain competitive in the market. So, our productivity in the plant, being ahead of things where we can, understanding your supply chain, and being well versed and educated on that, I think was really important for us. And then, beyond that, and then playing in with innovation a little bit is how can we create value for the consumer? So we've played with, some larger or bulk packs. We've played with our promotional strategy, but we've always been of the opinion that we have to be in that market. Nobody's going to pay $8 for a bag of chips. So and we talked about that price point of elasticity that we certainly don't want to go beyond. So how can we convey and create value for the consumer?
I appreciate the transparency, Kirk, and I totally agree with whatever you have said. And I guess on top of that, there is a need for innovation, we all know, but companies need to get inspired. And how's that inspiration going to come? I guess that's another question. That's for another time. So, yeah, going on to our next one. So, Jane, let's come to you. How can snack manufacturers stay competitive in a crowded market?
And all the answers have been said. So, I mean, you've got to stay competitive because you need to know the consumption pattern of your target market. So that's the biggest thing. So if their consumption pattern changes, or they get a TikTok video that goes viral that helps their consumption patterns with their target market. I mean, all that is, you have to have your pulse on the consumption patterns. Understand the trends that your target market's gravitating towards. So, maybe they were choosing the better for you, but all of a sudden they want a little bit more indulgent with the better for you. And so understanding that. So what trends are your target market resonating or gravitating to? And then again, going back to the price range, like we just really need to hone in on what is your target market willing to pay. And Kirk, I have paid $8 for a bag of potato chips at a hotel. So
But you were desperate. That was snacking occasion.
it was a desperate snacking occasion. It was. Well, I didn't realize the price, and because it was in like the where you check in, so it wasn't like in a tuck shop. So I just said, "Oh, I'll take those cheddar chips." And then when I checked out, it was $8. Yeah. But yeah, getting back to price sensitivity is really important to be competitive.
Thank you for the actionable takeaways, Jane. So, Kirk, what specific steps have you particularly taken at naturally homegrown foods to differentiate and grow?
Yeah, so I mentioned innovation, and a lot of it too comes into some seasonality. So we do things around the fall where it's more harvest season. This past year, we did a sweet potato and yam medley chip. We've played around with a pumpkin spice sweet potato chip in the past. Right now in market, we have a, kind of spring, summer strawberry margarita popcorn. So playing with flavor profiles, playing with different vegetables, but then also, looking at things such as the cooking oil or fat matrix as well too. The big thing that we mentioned, snacking occasions, so pack format and what kind of works for different snacking occasion. And then, differentiating ourselves as well for growth really has meant getting into different channels, gas and convenience for a different snacking occasion, food service, or then also going into the club channel, which are different pack formats as well too.
Amazing, Kirk. I hope the audience can take out some good points from there. So, Andreas, coming on to you, how can companies leverage AI and data to stay ahead of these trends and challenges?
All right. Well, I hope you have a couple of hours time. I think we have 2 minutes to answer the question. I know data and AI is changing everything right now. And one of the big differentiators is that it allows you to make a lot of data. It gives you access to a lot more data than people ever had access to, and it allows you to make this data useful. So one of the things, for example, that we do for some of our clients, we build digital consumer panels. So that basically means AI generated people in air quotes. And the overlap we have with real flesh and blood humans is around 90%. So now what you have, even as a small manufacturer, you can have a consumer panel made out of 10, 20, maybe even 100 people, and you can run your ideas by these digital consumer panels, and you get feedback from these panels day or night. And that allows you to create a discussion with those consumer panels that allows you to move forwards faster. Our entire idea of learning is based on, I'm going to go back a couple of thousand years, is based on the Socratic idea that knowledge comes from discussion, from conversations. And now what you can have for the first time ever, you can have conversations as a product developer, as somebody like Kirk, you can have conversation with a machine. And that machine has access to the collected knowledge and wisdom, for better or for worse, of all humanity ever. And if you direct these conversations appropriately, the insight you can get from them is absolutely amazing. Think of it as a GPS for your innovation roadmap in a way that was never possible before. So, I think one of the things that allows us to do, it allows us to act on our what if thoughts. What would happen if we introduce functional mushroom snacks into the women's wellness category? What happens if we'd say, can we make a yogurt product that helps us create better sleep habits? Like, all of these things are now explorable in a way that is affordable, both from a financial point of view, but also from a time investment point of view, in a way that we've never seen before. I'm going to stop here now before you make me stop, but there are enormous opportunity for Canadian food manufacturers to not just stay competitive, but actually create real leadership there.
Thank you so much, Andres. I know it's a big topic, but you were able to give a good brief about it. So thank you so much for this great advice. And now let's move on to the next question. So Jane, do you see opportunities for growth in niche snack categories like flavors and textures and snacks that are particularly targeted towards women's health?
Definitely the whole bold flavor, global flavors, nostalgic flavors, all very important in the snacking category, and textures. So crispy, crumbly, crunchy, chewy. If we don't get that mouthfeel satisfying with the snack, then we may overindulge. So those 100-calorie packs are now 400 calories because we've eaten 4 of them, and we've missed the whole point of the 100-calorie pack. So really important when you are developing, to look at the taste, look at the texture. And women's health is an area that is getting more research. Over the years, women in general research. So, when we first were testing for airbags in the automotive industry, the crash test dummy was 5'9" and was a male structure. And so small men and women were dying upon impact because the testing didn't consider half the population. So we are getting better. We have a long way to go with the food and nutrition and that aspect of it. But recently I interviewed a Canadian entrepreneur who creates lactation cookies, and I just want to make sure I have her name. It's Claudia Marion, and she created Baby Boons, which are a lactation cookie, which is a snack. And so mother of 4 saw a need for this, but the biggest thing was taste and texture. And so when she created this product that's award winning, she said it has to taste good and the texture has to be good. And obviously, it does what it needs to do. But her company is developing more and more snack-like items for women's health. So not just the hormonal side of, birthing and pregnancy, and then postpartum, and then menopause and that, but other things that that we look at with women, like how do we respond to omega-3s? Is that different than what men do? How do we respond to magnesium? Is that different than what men do? So all of this area is up and coming, and it's getting more attention, which is really terrific. But the most snacks I see right now are kind of in the hormonal health for women. But I think we can move past that and identify how we are different, and how essential nutrients may be a different dosage for us. And so that research is underway, and like I say, more and more research needs to be done in that area. But it's good to see that it's taking a positive direction.
That's amazing, Jane. And I guess there's this one thing we often talk about women focus brands or products, but I guess there is a lack when we talk about men focused products. Recently at CL, I witnessed a new company, T for Guys. They were particularly focusing on vitality and all those things for particularly for men. So I guess there is also an option for growth there for different companies. So,
And I just had one point, cardiovascular disease, women and men present very different. And so that's an area for research for sure. So I think like heart disease and heart healthy products would differentiate for men and women. And so, yeah, thanks for bringing up that point, because there's a really good example of a health state that is very different between the two.
You're totally right. And me personally suffering from PCODs, I have seen that there are so many medications or food products that just, they don't talk about gender. It's just about the product out in the market. So there needs to be research done on, particular genders and different products. So that's great. Amazing answer, Jane. So, Andreas, can you particularly talk about functional snacks category now?
Yeah. So we're seeing this convergence of health personalization and snackification. And I think that builds exactly on what Jane said, and also what Kirk mentioned earlier on. So the idea that snacks are functional, that snacks support mood, your energy, maybe even your hormonal balance, that's no longer fringe. It used to be fringe. That used to be, slightly hippified and slightly weird, but that's no longer fringe. That's moving into front and center. And I think I'm going to jump on a hobby horse here for a second again. The key is data. And if you overlay consumer sentiment with the kind of biological data that Jane just mentioned, right? What are the specific gender needs? And we have this information. And if we then overlay this with taste preferences, and if we then overlay this with emotional preferences, and if you use AI, sorry about this, but if you use AI to do these things, then all of a sudden we can do all of these things because it gets really accessible to people who don't have access to highly specialized people who used to do this kind of work, then we can actually, like even smaller companies, even smaller manufacturers, it becomes really possible to find these underserved needs. And once we start developing products for these underserved needs, then what used to be niche becomes mainstream. And I think we'll all benefit from this. I think, we'll all benefit from this with better for us products, and the manufacturers benefit from it for putting products to market that will actually be successful.
Fascinating insights, Andres. Thank you for that. And quickly moving to Kirk. So, Kirk, what motivated the launch of Poptastic Popcorn, and what market signals drove that decision?
Yeah, for us, I mean, not going to be that, I guess, novel of an approach, but it was really leveraging our understanding and our data of the salty snack aisle and seeing a market opportunity. And in saying that, ready-to-eat popcorn is a popular category that continues to grow within the Canadian market. But it has lacked in certain elements of innovation beyond just, say, a plain salted or low calorie to maybe a white cheddar. So, how could we bring different flavor profiles? How could we bring better for you ingredients like avocado oil to market on that? And then, of course, we certainly benefited from being able to complement this with our kettle chip line. So there's market dynamics of calling on the same retail decision maker. For them, they can cut one purchase order with multiple categories, and it helps harmonize supply chain costs as well too. So some basics on that, but really just to go out and say, oh, we're going to do popcorn as well. It had to have a brand and an identity and a product profile all onto itself as well too.
Well, that's, I guess, interesting and an amazing strategy. So thank you for sharing that, Kirk. Moving to my next question, how can smaller or emerging brands keep up with the larger players in the market who have more resources for R&D and marketing? So, Kirk, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's really simple on the surface. It's yeah, you have to be different in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, why does the consumer need you? So you have to be able to differentiate yourself. For example, us going into the potato chip industry, let's say, by and large, we had to be different than Miss Vickie's, which is the large conventional brand within the Canadian landscape. And we did so by differentiating product profile and with better for you ingredients and origin, things like that. You have to find a way to compete with those guys. Andreas talks about getting into new and novel categories, and I think that's what's so exciting about when you explore entrepreneurs' journeys, successful ones within the food space within Canada. And I can think of a number of people right now that have innovated and brought really novel ideas to market that large CPGs just did not see a market opportunity on. They actually created a market. A great example here in Vancouver is Dea. A non-dairy based cheese that really exploded that category out. There's many others. There's in London, Ontario, Margaret Coons with Nuts for Cheese right now is creating something brand new. three farmers in Saskatchewan doing things with roasting of novel proteins and things like that. And really they're creating they're trailblazing in a way and creating a subcategory where you're not necessarily going to see large CPG pay attention to it until that subcategory starts scratching at adjacent categories that they're competing in. And that's really how you differentiate yourself. Innovate, invest where you can, take risks, and then also fail fast is another one that I think we try to say that internally here too, is it's okay. We want to take risks. And if we do and it doesn't work, let's just move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm. I guess those are some great insights for our emerging brands. Thank you for that, Kirk. And Andreas, what's your advice here?
Yeah, 100% what Kirk just said. Totally agree with them. I think, if you can't compete on scale, you can always compete on speed and relevance. You can always compete on finding the overlap between the gap in the market and what your passion is. I think one place where brands fail is if they focus just on where their passion is and they ignore where the gap in the market is. And again, I'm going to jump on this hobby horse. If you're not using AI to understand the market gap, to identify the market gap, and to help AI and data to get to the point where speed and relevance overlap and your passion overlap, then you're creating a headwind for yourself. But I think the brands that do go out, that do understand the world in which we live in, that do sort of say, where is the gap, where there is something that's bubbling up from a consumer need that hasn't been met, how does this overlap with the things that I personally care about, because this is a hard thing to do. And then, as Kirk was saying, fail fast. And data and AI can help us fail fast because, fail fast used to be bring a product to market and see how it performs. Now what I can do, I can put a product idea into AI and I can say, based on the data that I have access to, based on the data that the AI has access to, tell me how this would potentially perform in the market. We use our AI consumer panels for that kind of feedback all the time. And the results in 2025, in the spring of 2025, early summer of 25, are excellent and getting better. So we can de-risk, we can speed up, and as Kirk was saying, we can really sort of find that space where innovation is possible. And that's really exciting.
I hope the audience is taking notes because those were some great advices. So, coming on to Jane now, what advice would you offer to startups navigating innovation in the better for you category?
Yeah, so definitely building upon what Kirk and Andreas has said, but the gap in the market. So, identifying, because again, the startups probably have their own idea and the passion around it, but is there actually a gap in the market? Is there a market for it? And are you, can you create? And so I guess with the AI, Andreas, they could ask AI, is there potential for this product? But I just think, a few years ago with bone broth and drinkable bone broth, and that what, maybe 15 years ago, if you sold somebody to drink bone broth, they'd look at you like you were kind of insane. So now there's many products in that space, and they seem to be getting market share, all of them. So, but again, going back to taste and texture too. So for a repeat purchase, you definitely have to have taste and texture. And if you're really focused on the better for you side, sometimes that can get lost. And definitely for the startups, just because it's appealing to you, it may not be appealing to your target market that's going to pay for the product. So make sure that it's got taste and texture and appealing taste and texture.
Mhm.
And
Love your
it's scalable as well, Jane.
Yes, good point. Scalable.
Yeah, yeah. Like you can make something great tasting on the bench, but you've got to be able to scale it too.
Yeah, and definitely talking to startups, understanding that the recipe on bench does not equal a scale up recipe, and so a formulation. So no, that's a really good point. And to do that, and that's where you fail fast and move on.
And I'd love to, Jane, I so agree with taste and texture. Like that, it is so essential. I'd love to add to this emotional relevance. It tastes great, it feels great in your mouth from a texture perspective, but it also feels great on an emotional level. And I think that's really important.
Mhm.
Amazing discussion. And let's be quick now. We have 10 minutes left. So let's cover some quick questions. So, Kirk, what lessons can Canadian snack manufacturers learn from global counterparts in terms of innovation and agility?
Yeah, I think you can definitely see, yeah, I look at the European and some of the Asian markets as really driving things 5 to 10 years in advance of us, and seeing what's out there right now, having a pulse on things, whether it be through trade show or just in market, it really exposes you to a lot. The panels talked about functional foods. It's much more prevalent in Europe, for example, and then you have foshu in Japan. But bringing those product concepts back and kind of tying it to this last point is you have to bring a taste profile within any type of a functional food base that fits a Canadian flavor profile as well too. So you can't bring something that works for Europe into Canada and assume that it's going to be success. Like, just primitively speaking, we've taken Canadian flavor profiles on chips down into the US and realized, man, this doesn't meet an American taste profile. And we're 15 minutes from the border right here, right now. We think we know them. And it's the same thing with taking, really novel ideas out of Europe and scaling them up in the North American market.
Really valuable takeaways. Thank you so much, Kirk. Moving to Andreas. How is the global data landscape shaping product development elsewhere in the world?
Yeah, I think, again, building on what Kirk said on the whole innovation that we're seeing coming out of Europe, coming out of Asia, which I wholeheartedly agree with. I think one of the biggest things that we're currently observing is the closing of what we call the say-do gap, right? When you ask people what they're going to eat, they will lie to you shamelessly. Like if you rely on social media data, everybody on social media data only eats organic local food, like anybody who asks. And there is this sort of performative element that people are putting out because they are they want to be, everybody wants to be liked, everybody wants to look good. And what we're seeing in Europe, what we're seeing in Asia, where there are markets that have been relying on data for quite some time, is that we have products in market that are closer to the way that people are really behaving and closer to fulfilling real needs-driven innovation. So we're coming back to hyper-personalized functional snacking that's sometimes tied to sleep, it's tied to mood, might be tied to hydration. And it's really important for us to understand that these things aren't gimmicks, but they're data-driven responses to real-world observed routines. And I think in the Canadian markets, we have an opportunity to learn from this and start implementing this kind of thinking closer to home.
Really valuable takeaways. Thank you so much, Andreas. And so I guess, Jane, what global trends are shaping innovation and better for you snacks?
Definitely the increasing health and wellness across the world. So people are wanting to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and self-care. Definitely clean label and transparency of ingredients. Those are important pieces. Nutrient-rich ingredients. And then for the snacking category, it has to be portable and convenient. So that's, again, we're seeing that globally, that it has to be portable and convenient. So those would be my top.
Thank you so much. I think there's a lot to think about there. And moving on to the next question, let's start with Andreas. What is the single most important action Canadian snack manufacturers should take now to prepare for the next big shift in the consumer behavior?
Understand what consumers really want. Right, understand what they really want, understand where their needs are, understand the world we're living in. I think these are really important things to keep in mind. And, is it new moms looking for high protein convenience, whatever is going on there? And I think that's an important thing to do. And this is sort of one of the things that we're observing, and Kirk and I had a conversation about this in the past. One of the things that we're seeing is that the big players in the market, the PepsiCos in this world, they are investing significant resources into understanding the world we all live in. They're investing in AI, they're investing in data, and they have internal teams that spend a lot of time figuring all of these things out. What I think is really important for Canadian manufacturers that perhaps are not PepsiCo, that aren't Kraft Heinz, but they are working in that level, I don't want to call below, but financially, slightly fewer resources, that they make the most use they can possibly make of all the tools that are now available to them to compete in this market and to make sure that they maintain relevancy and maintain market share, and that the passion and the innovation and all of these things are being put into the market and given the best chance possible.
Thank you so much, Andreas. What's your recommendation here, Kirk?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on that, actually. I think it's been well covered. I'll just for respect of your time and some of the questions, I'll kind of let you move on if that's okay.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to this, Jane?
No.
Okay, that's amazing. Then moving to my final questions. So Kirk, what role does product marketing play in influencing consumer choice in today's snack landscape?
Yeah, and I guess maybe I'm trying to steal a couple of minutes for this one because this one's actually I could go on for a while, but within the salty snack space, there's data that shows that purchase decision has not been made until the consumer actually gets into the aisle. And so what are the purchase triggers that are driving purchase decision there at the point of purchase? Well, the product itself has to be right priced. That's a key driver. There has to be bold or different packaging. It has to jump off. Origin is something that is driving decision making. And then, a big thing is people like what they know and as far as flavor profiles, but they also like some innovation. So if something is right priced, they're probably going to buy multiple units and they're going to buy their core favorites, and then they're going to buy something that's kind of different. And so what you're doing there is you're gaining trial. And beyond that, what you want to do is drive household penetration. So that's feature pricing, promotional pricing, anything that you can do to engage the consumer to get that product in their mouth. So we do things like demos. We do product giveaways. We send street teams out in the market to actually give away product and get people familiar with it, because we're trying to build a brand or build brands. And so that's really important to us. And then, equally important, we like to engage with the community on social media. So, with a more limited budget than some of the large players within our category, we try and do things, on Instagram and different social channels to engage the consumer. So we've got about a 15,000 person following with some pretty solid organic growth of about 15 to 20% per year on that. And that's with a fairly pared down budget, because we do spend a lot on innovation and with our influencing factors on shelf. So.
That's amazing, Kirk. And I just want to add one thing. That's a personal experience. I was just, in No Frills shopping my groceries, and there was this man, and he was from Lactalis. So he was just doing a survey about dairy-free products, basically, how are plant-based products doing in the market, if people are actually going into that aisle, if they are buying it or not. So I guess that's also one good option. Just, sending somebody to the field and talking to the shoppers directly. Those surveys are good. So thank you for sharing, Kirk. And Jane, how can nutritional positioning and health messaging be effectively communicated through product marketing?
Yeah, so marketing, I still believe there's opportunity in traditional marketing right through to TikTok. So depending on your target market, where they are, where they're getting your information or their information. So I think there's numerous ways to get that. But just before we wrap up, I want to just talk about the Health Canada mandate for the prepackaged foods. So coming January the 1st. Health Canada has mandated symbols for sugar, sodium, and fat right on the package. So I thought it was just timely to mention that as we're talking about messaging through the product or marketing channels.
That's amazing. So, moving on to Andreas, how can companies use AI and data-driven insights to craft targeted product marketing strategies?
Yeah, in many different ways. And, again, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep this very, very short. Give an example recently where we worked with a company that had a frozen product. And through really data and AI, well, one of the things we found out was that the convenience factor of this wasn't being addressed. So they had a frozen product in market, was highly successful, tasted really good. So taste and texture, from Jane's perspective, were absolutely fantastic. They had a good launch. They got a good reaction from retail, and then the reorders just sort of dropped off, and the velocity wasn't there. And so one of the things that we found out using data, using AI, that the product felt too much like, air quotes, cooking for the consumer. And so one of the things that we put onto that we suggested to our client was, don't spend money on marketing, but let's test this with air fryers in mind, and let's change the positioning to be 100% air fryer friendly. Did a relaunch, 18% increase in sales within 2 months after it was on shelf, and velocity recovered. So those are things where, if you use data, if you use AI intelligently, if you go into the center, you can get these kinds of insights. And then what was a marketing problem really turn into a positioning change that addressed the consumer's needs stronger and better.
Thank you so much, Andreas. And in fact, thank you all panelists for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights. I won't take much time and quickly jump to the questions from the audience. So there's one from Rena Mystery. What are the next flavor trends that consumers are looking for? Are there differences in what they are looking for between sweet and salty snacks? And is there any opportunity for crossover flavors? Who wants to take over this one?
I can start. I mean, we've seen a heavy drive in spicy note, and I think that's kind of it remains strong, but it's nothing novel or new. But I do see a swing back, ironically, to savory. Savory's having a moment again, in spite of the fact that dairy is an allergen, but we're definitely seeing that, and even some nostalgic ones. So can you differentiate, for example, sour cream and onions having a moment again, shockingly. And so that's something. And then the other thing that we're seeing in the salty snack space that's kind of at the forefront is international fusion flavors that are coming back and coming into the market. Those that might trend well in other foreign markets are showing up over here. We launched a tikka masala this year to try and find our space on international fusion flavors.
I hope Rina found it helpful. There is actually another question from her. How does online shopping and grocery delivery impact sales or marketing efforts in snack trends?
I can take a stab at this. It reduces brand loyalty. That's the very, very immediate answer. It reduces brand loyalty because you have neither the experience at the retailer that Kirk talked about earlier on, where you can optimize your packaging, you can optimize your placement, you can optimize so many things, but you also don't have the time that people take when they go, I don't know, they go to Amazon, for want of a better one, and they read the page and they read the reviews. Online shopping, grocery delivery tends to be about the main driver behind this tends to be convenience and speed. Like, I don't have time to do this. I need to get my kids to school. I need to run to work. And so what we're seeing when we looked at the data there, that people are far more willing to give another brand a chance or to take the first one that catches their eye than perhaps they would be at a retailer where they say, oh, I'm just going to go to the next aisle and pick the ones I want to do. The grocery, the Instacarts of this world, they know this. And that's why they're trying to sell you marketing packages and put your brand front and center. So you have to pay for access.
Thank you, Andreas. Amazing response. And going to the last question for the afternoon from Bruno Salvi. Curious on getting the panel's perspective on the balance between consumers' desire out of home to help fuel their need for a snack and mindful of what they are snacking on versus indulgence as a treat, perhaps when not home, looking to gain insight into what people say they want versus what they end up doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. As Andreas said earlier, people will say that they're going to eat fruits and vegetables, and then they don't do that. But I really believe that people are being intentional about their snacking now, and intentional about, okay, it's not just chips, like conventional chips, but here, what other better for you healthy snacks with positive nutrition are available. So I think that's a really good point.
And looks like we have one more question. That's for Kirk. Do you believe that aside from better ingredients, natural, non-GMO, is there is a market need for better overall nutrition in snacks that is lower fat, lower sodium, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. I think that those are key, and we've seen a desire, whether it's make America healthy again or things like that, where you're seeing people want to have deliberate healthier products. The blurring on it is if it's going to be indulgent, it has to still taste good. Otherwise, they'll eat a carrot or an apple, and get the same functionality to that. So, and there has to be something discernible. Like reduced fat had a bit of a moment, but it's very confusing for the consumer because it's like, I'm kind of tricking myself that it's better for me, but like I'm still kind of crossing the line a little bit here. So, but with some of these targets for front of pack that are definitely going to come to the forefront for us, sodium is one of them. Can we find ways to deliver some type of a salty note through other ingredients without having a sodium level increase? Or how can we mesh together flavors to have a bold flavor profile? So absolutely, I think that's important. Organic, we haven't really talked about as another driver. It hasn't necessarily been in potato chip, but we see it in tortillas and puffs and extruded products and things like that. There is definitely growth there, and people are gravitating more towards wanting organic popcorn for their kids or things like that, and so I think there's definitely a market there, but you have to do it right.
Thank you so
And
much for that
very
response. Was
briefly, and building on what Kirk just said, one of the things that we're observing is that people are, and this is a small market, and this is something that's not a trend, but it's just a little blip that we're seeing. People are using food that traditionally perhaps wasn't snack food as snack food. And so, for example, frozen fruit became a thing when people started having smoothies. We're seeing behavior now where people are snacking on frozen cherries, or they're snacking on frozen blueberries, right? And there is this desire that Jane mentioned earlier on about high nutrient, and what could be cleaner, than fruit. And so one of the things that we're seeing in that desire that Danielle was mentioning, the market for better overall nutrition, people are sort of saying, well, I can snack on frozen fruit. I can snack on, things that traditionally weren't perhaps part of the snacking aisle, but the consumer is putting them into their snacking behavior.
Thank you so much, Andres, for answering it. And I will just say great questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted them. And just a quick reminder that we will be sending out a link to the recorded session in the next few days. So keep an eye on your inboxes. And just to conclude, thank you again for all the panelists for joining us and sharing your insights. It's clear from this discussion that the snack industry is evolving, and health, sustainability, innovation are the driving change. As consumer priorities and preferences shift, brands that can adapt to these changing demands and offer innovative, nutritious, and sustainable options will be best positioned for success. So before you head out, we would love to hear what are your thoughts on today's session. A short survey will be pop once you end the webinar. Thanks again for being here and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I know.